Hello, Michael Grasso with Private Pook Games, here today with a review of The Old King's Crown. I was fortunate enough to join a game session of this. I played the game with a very cool family. It was a father, a mother, and their kid, and it was just a whole lot of fun. Didn't get through too much of it because it is a complicated game, but got through a couple of rounds, got the general gist of it, took it home, picked up a copy of it at Gen Con, and was able to take it home and tried the game out. And I feel like I have a good idea of what my thoughts are on this and whether or not you may like it, which you may not. This is definitely a game that will be for some people and not so much for others. To begin with, if I was going to say too long didn't watch, this is sort of a complicated one, but if I was going to give a too long didn't watch, I would say this game feels weirdly like a response to low player interaction complaints in modern Euro games. Now, I do not claim to know what the designers were thinking when they made this game, but the game is so conflict filled and there's so much interaction that I feel like they almost made this game and designed it knowing that there's a lot of message boards out there where people are saying, Euro games, modern Euro games, it's all just like solitaire, but at the table with people. You're doing your own thing, but you don't interact as much as you used to in other games because, or everything's cooperative and, I want to play a game where we're really out to get the other person. I want gotcha moments. Well, this game literally it feels like it's a response to that. I don't know if it actually is, but I will say if you're the kind of person that's played different Euro games and you feel like you're doing your own thing alongside someone else and only conflict is who gets the most points at the end, well, this might be a game you'd really enjoy. This might be a breath of fresh air because literally there is constant conflict in this game. The entire game, to me, if I was going to sum it up, I would say get in your opponent's way. There is really no mechanic in this game I can think of where you don't have the opportunity to either battle your opponent, get in their way, or do something to screw them up. That sometimes is, bidding for cards. That is also instead saying, well, I'm not going to bid for a card. I'm going to steal one of your cards. It could be I'm going to steal the favor of the kingdom. People love you, but I'm going to now make them love me through manipulative ends. It might be that you're fighting for the same space in the land, and you're going to have to battle it out, metaphorically and literally. It might be that you are competing for places on a council in order to get different powers. There's literally nothing I can think of in this game where you're not against someone. So if you like being mean in games, this might be a great Euro for you. If you're the kind of person that's not your thing, you don't really like those gotcha moments, well, this game might frustrate you and you might want to steer clear of it. That said, I do think there's an audience out there that wants some of these modern board games to go back to that feeling, and this could be a really good experience for you if you're looking for that. Now, I do have to say, there is a steep learning curve in this game, and this learning curve is particularly unique. And the reason why is because I can't tell you it's really hard to give you any specific examples of why this game is complicated, because the truth is, each phase of the game is actually rather simple. When you bid for cards, you play a card. The highest card gets to pick from the display first. That seems pretty simple, right? Yeah, but then there's other effects that might play into play that you might have done that might have increased the amount of which your bid is worth. You might be using your bid to instead steal from someone else. And how do you decide whether your card's high enough to steal? Well, it's based on the card that the person you're stealing from used to get it in a bid in a previous turn, and hopefully that's enough for you to get the idea of, yeah, that's really simple, but then it becomes very complicated when the cutthroat part of it comes in. Now, the other thing about this is I have it on the screen here. It says each phase is simple, but each round is not. A whole round is a lot of phases. It's, the beginning drawing up to the amount of cards you have, except it might not be your full hand. If you have to reshuffle your deck, then you're going to get one less. Then it's going to be determining the turn order, which is, pretty simple in itself. It's whoever has the most points goes first so that the people with less points can react to it. That's simple. Bidding is simple, except when it's not simple. After that, eventually you're going to be placing your herald and you're going to be placing your supporters. What are the difference between those two? And are you placing them in a location? Or are you placing them in a region? When it comes time to do clashes with other people who've chosen your same location, how are you going to divvy out cards in order to decide who wins that? What bonuses are you going to use? Which bonuses can you use in the spring versus the fall versus... Hopefully this is making sense. The phases themselves are simple, but there are so many things that can go into it and so many things you can watch out for. And this doesn't even bring into the fact that there are different factions with different abilities, and you need to become very familiar with those. And then on top of that, there's the abilities you start out with, the cards you start out with, and there's a little bit of a small hand management. And I wouldn't call this a deck builder, but you have up to 5 cards you can eventually earn to put in your deck to upgrade it. So I wouldn't officially, that's not really deck building to me because it's not adding that much. I call it more hand management, but wow, it gets really intense. So this is one where be aware there is a steep learning curve. If you're learning this in a group, you're going to need to ask questions. We certainly did, all 4 of us, when I played the game the first time. There's going to be a lot of checking the rule book. That said, I do think it is worth it, but if that's the sort of thing that's going to keep you away, just be aware. And also be aware that if you're playing this in a group of mixed skill sets, the people who have played the game before are inherently going to have an advantage over people who haven't. Now, that's to an extent a problem in every game you play, especially a Euro game. But I did want to mention in a game where it's so cutthroat, that could be something to be aware of if there's going to be someone who's going to dominate. And personally, if I was going to teach this game, I would intentionally make misplays in order to welcome other people into the game, at least for the first game. That said, your mileage may vary with that. Your playstyle might vary with that too. That's just one suggestion I would have. What else? Like I was saying, there's a lot of different things in here. A lot of Euros are based on area control. Some are based on bidding. Some are based on hand management or deck building. This one has a lot of things. There's a bidding phase. There is hand management because you have a hand of cards and you need to decide which one you use for the area control. Which one are you going to use for lane battling? Which one are you going to use for bidding? And then, of course, yeah, like I'd already mentioned, there's area control. There are certain lanes, and each lane is made up of 2 locations. And while at the end of the day, each location does matter, there's times when it doesn't. And hopefully, yeah, I don't need to go over that point anymore, but you get the idea. There are a lot of things in here, and ultimately they all do work, in my opinion. But you do, once again, this goes back to the idea that there's a lot of forces at play. All of them operate a little bit differently. There's no real verisimilitude between one working this way and another working this way. The only thing that's really common about any of it is that the cards in your hand have a number, and that number represents strength. The rest of it, the different abilities they have, the different descriptions, all may activate during different seasons of the game, and that's where things get a little bit pesky, but also very fun once you understand how the game works. Now, what else? The Simulacrum. I have to talk about this because I have plenty of solo playing that I love to do. I personally think solo board games are in many ways just as fun as multiplayer board games. I'm one of those people. The Simulacrum is a truly unique solo mode. Now, that doesn't mean you are going to like it. I personally love the solo mode for Luthier. It's one of my favorite solo modes ever. It is not universally loved. There are people who find it very tedious to learn and people who find that there's just a little bit too much management. And if that's you, the Simulacrum for Old King's Crown, you will probably find cumbersome. It does have a lot to it, and just like I described earlier, every phase operates a little bit differently. Well, guess what? With the Simulacrum, every phase is implemented differently as well. So literally, this is one where a lot of games, it feels like you have to learn the rules for multiplayer, and then if the solo mode's complicated enough, it's almost like you feel like you're learning a whole new rule set. Well, this one, definitely the case. It's really 2 steps. Learning how to play it multiplayer and learning how to play it solo are almost 2 different beasts. That said, once again, if you are willing to put in the work and if this is a game for you, it is absolutely worth it. There is a meaty thing here. And with the Simulacrum in particular, there's a couple things about it that I love. The first is, one, it is every bit of complication it adds because it does add to your ability to play the Simulacrum like a real opponent. I'm not ever going to say that any sort of automa in a board game would represent a real person, but wow, this one does a pretty good job of it. It does a lot of things where you have to play in much the same way you might try to go against the opponent. The only thing missing is that if you know the person personally, you can't play against the person's own psyche. You can't look for those sort of patterns. But if you're thinking about what cards could they have in their hand, what things could be triggering, and there are many places where the Simulacrum will give you clues as to what might pop up, except there's one instance where literally 25% of the time the cards intentionally lie to you, so you have to keep that in mind. That's the sort of thing that this does. And then in addition to that, it also includes something called forge cards. I think that's on my next slide. Oh, nope, that's Will You Like It. Let's not go there yet. They have forge cards. Forge cards do a couple of different things. One side of every forge card is something that will make the Simulacrum harder. And we're not talking about like, oh, add one to every card. We're talking about behaviors that change. And then if you flip it over, there is something on that side that would make it a little bit easier. So there's a whole lot of adjustment and ability to make this into something very unique. Now, on top of that, yet again, this is how much they've thought into this. There's also a section of the solo rulebook at the end where it gives you predetermined ways to structure it, like different styles of players. So if you literally want, they've literally built opponents that play in very specific and unique ways in order for you to try out different types of Simulacrum. So it's not just one thing where they're flipping cards and seeing what happens. They're actually structuring the cards and the things that they're preloading for you in order to make it a certain type of opponent. And if you are a big fan of solo automa, I'm hoping that this makes sense. How much thought they have put into this. Now, does that, like I said, that does not mean you're going to like it. It is a meaty solo mode. It is cumbersome, and it is a real work to learn. It takes what's the word I'm looking for? It is a really uphill battle to learn. Is it worth learning? Yes, if this is your sort of thing. That said, this is not going to be for everyone. There are people who are going to find the Simulacrum to be just absolutely a headache to try and manage. There are probably some people who might find the game sort of a headache just because there is so much of an uphill battle with the initial rules. Now, once it's rolling, I'm going to be honest, the fact that every phase is so simple, the game, once you understand it, doesn't feel that complicated. So that is something to keep in mind. And this is where I want to talk about Will You Like It? I sort of jumped the gun on it, but let's be honest, like if you're going to like this game, if you are ready for the uphill battle of learning it, if you love the idea of this being a game where it's really designed for you to get in your opponent's way every step of the way, and that's part of the way you win, is you have to block your opponent and frustrate them. If that sounds good to you, then you'll like it. And if you're okay with a very well-written rule book, a very well-organized rule book, but with many different phases that all operate differently, but once you learn them, they actually feel relatively simple. It's the sort of game that once you learn it, you're like, really? Why was that so hard to learn? Because in retrospect, you forgot how weird it was to learn every different phase. Now, the other thing I didn't put a slide in here for, but I do want to mention, is the art is absolutely beautiful. This is, it's just a beauty to behold. The board is amazing. The cards are amazing. All of this is so well structured. Now, if this art style is not yours, not your thing, then it doesn't matter how good it is. But if this artwork is your thing, I will tell you that seeing this out on your table is a beauty to behold. It's a little bit of a space hog, but not the worst I've ever had. And you know, I'm cool with it personally. That's about it for now. I'm sure there's something I've forgotten, but it's the Old King's Crown. There's still some time to late pledge for it on Gamefound for the second printing of it. The second printing, for the record, is absolutely identical to the first. They're just printing more copies of it. It's not a second edition. It is just a second printing. So I'll try and remember to put the link to that in here. But if you're interested, go ahead and grab it. There's still late pledges available. And give me a subscribe, give me a like, comment if you've had a chance to play the game, and let me know. I'm just curious. You know, everyone is always be nice, don't be a snot, but I'd love to hear anyone's thoughts of, do you want more player interaction in games? Do you want more conflict? Is that something you feel is missing? And there's no wrong answer here. Some people like it, some people don't, and we're all going to be respectful of that. Thank you so much, and have a great day.